Sorry, Mark. Oh, actually, we're not...
CATWEAZLE! CATWEAZLE!
CATWEAZLE! Stop saying CATWEAZLE!
Oh, sorry. You're going to say, let's watch some CATWEAZLE, and then expect me not to get obsessed with the word CATWEAZLE.
CATWEAZLE.
That I'm going to say it all day, every day after I've watched that match. I'm just going to say CATWEAZLE. One of the greatest words in the English language, CATWEAZLE.
It is.
Hey, CATWEAZLE!
Well, we were kind of... When the sad disappearance of Madeleine McCann happened back in the day, we were...
I'm not sure that CATWEAZLE should be put in the frame for that disappearance.
But if there was a photo fit of a drifter in the area, he would look like CATWEAZLE.
Look, I mean, the important thing is, we've said it a lot. People are still none the wiser.
No.
What is a CATWEAZLE?
What is a CATWEAZLE? No.
Justin Upton on YouTube 2 years ago. I think he's American. He wrote, "The hell is CATWEAZLE?" Well, we're going to tell you all about CATWEAZLE. What you see here, Pete, is that not all British wrestling from the classic golden era from the 70s through to the 80s is rollerball, rocco and dynamite.
No.
CATWEAZLE is one of the key comedy wrestlers of the world of sport era. Now, British wrestling, you know this. We've watched a lot of it over the years, and one of the key things about British wrestling that puts it apart from anything else is it does have quite frequent comedy spots.
Yeah.
And you get people like Crybaby Jim Breaks, Tally Ho Kay, Sid Cooper. They're all guys who would be mean heels, who would also quite often have little comedy sections. The key comedy wrestler in British wrestling history is Les Kellett. Now, Les Kellett is basically Eric Morecambe, because Les Kellett has the most impeccable comic timing of any wrestler that's ever performed.
Yeah.
There is something about him that is funny from the word go, and his story is made even better by the fact that he is, in real life, one of the most frightening, terrifying, hard men in British history. That combination with Kellett, he did comedy, but he was also incredibly hard. He's taken a step further with CATWEAZLE. And CATWEAZLE is basically Les Kellett without as good timing and not hard. So the easiest way to explain the difference between the two is Kellett is Eric Morecambe and CATWEAZLE is Bobby Ball. He's broader.
Yeah.
He appeals more to kids. He's not as convincing. And there is an argument to say that his output is shit.
Yes.
Right?
He is a man who has the vibe of the bloke playing Puck in a touring school Shakespeare company.
Yeah.
Or the man who turns up at your school with an auto harp. He's a local folk festival mainstay, and he's popping in to show everyone how to play the auto harp. The shittest of all of the harps.
Also, let's not beat around the bush. He has a very, very Savile vibe about him.
He is very Savile-esque.
The period, the sort of general look that he's a drifter, that he has no roots, that he's just got stuff going on. He's
Witcher Wild Hunt side quest kind of fare. His clothes don't make any sense. He's found him outside a Sue Rider. He's put him on. He looks awful. No one wants to talk to him or fuck him or eat with him. He's just awful man.
It would be like a local man who was a nuisance.
He's a nuisance, yes. As in just being a little bit too close to people in the shopping centre.
We were coming back from the B Jam. And I saw that man, and he was weeing, but he wasn't facing the B Jam. He was facing out. Just the sort of thing that in the 70s and 80s were seen as being, oh, that's that man. That are now quite serious offences.
Yeah, exactly. He's the worst.
Darling, I'd prefer it if you didn't go to the park today, because Judith rang and she said the man's down there. And he's at the edge of the field, so don't go near the edge of the field, certainly.
Out in the open where we can all see you.
This is made even funnier by the fact that we all get that vibe off him.
Yeah.
That CATWEAZLE was really the first attempt that British wrestling made at appealing to kids with a character.
Different, just that kind of era of like bag pussy kind of characters. Rent-A-Ghost, these kind of weird men. You know when like Fleetwood Mac were like a folk band and they were terrible and everyone hated them? Ask CATWEAZLE. Ask fucking CATWEAZLE. Hello, I'm Pete from WrestleMania.
Hello, I'm Mark from WrestleMania.
That was a nice salute. We can be found over on our Patreon, patreon.com/WrestleMe. You get weekly podcasts, a monthly fantastic newsletter that's absolutely gigantic. It's ginormous. You get weekly podcasts advert-free, and you also get these videos advert-free. It's patreon.com/WrestleMe.
We've done loads of stuff there, so go and look at it. There's loads. The other thing about CATWEAZLE is it sort of does fit into a larger part of British culture, which was CATWEAZLE originally came up as an ITV kids show.
Yeah.
And CATWEAZLE was an 11th century wizard who is pursued by soldiers, and he jumps into a pond having made a spell, and he finds himself in 1969 England, and everything he sees he believes to be magic. The first thing he sees is like a tractor while he's hiding in a barn, and he goes, ah, ah, ah. And the tractor is being driven by a child.
Yeah.
And the child comes out and goes, hey you, what are you doing back there? And he kind of goes, ah, 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 ah. And the 70s was obsessed with saying, if you meet elderly men in the woods,
it's fine.
And you've got to become friends with them.
Yes.
Befriend them. And the important thing is, don't tell adults about it.
Yes, your little secret.
You've got to keep it secret.
Yes.
And I mean, they don't explain in the TV thing why CATWEAZLE is being pursued by the soldiers. But even for an 11th century man, CATWEAZLE is portrayed as being very much on the margins.
On the margins. He's on the lam. He's trying to escape the clutches of some big, strong soldiers. Why is that? One might question.
Soldiers who what? Uphold the law? the law of the realm? Don't worry about CATWEAZLE. He's just interested in black magic in a cave. I shouldn't think there's anything untoward about it. The first time you meet him in the TV thing, he comes out and there's an owl up a tree that he sees, and he just starts going, hush thy hooting, owl! Hush thy hooting! And like, the soldiers are just like, we've got to stop this fucking guy in the woods. He gets to 1969 England, everyone's just like, this guy is so much fun. So much fun.
Oh, there. Here. Pop. What? Pop. Lemonade or orangeade? Nay, pop.
In Series 2, he makes his home in an abandoned railway building.
Good.
And he makes friends with a lonely boy who he gives the nickname Owlface. Taking this kid away from his unhappy life so he can be in an abandoned railway building
an old man.
An 80-year-old man. None of this is good. Series 2, CATWEAZLE has to solve a series of riddles week by week. And I was like, I haven't watched Series 2, but I imagine those riddles, like week 1 is, where's the best place to hide a boy's body? Week 2 is, what false name do I give to the policewoman who comes and asks me who I am? And, you know, it's just so weird.
Since thou tried to poison me, I will call up demons to destroy thee.
It's slightly less weird a character when you do know that it's completely stolen from something that was on television.
Yeah.
But it's sort of weirder in the fact that that TV show only ran for 1 calendar year. And CATWEAZLE was doing this until 1988. At which point, you know, this is a show from 20 years ago that no one could have remembered.
No.
And you're just like, this is just a CATWEAZLE. It's a CATWEAZLE. It's just a CATWEAZLE. When he came along, it was a time when actually this gimmick probably didn't really help British wrestling, because British wrestling needed to sort of effectively double down on its athletic and sportsmanlike nature. And instead what you had was someone who really did make it clear that this was all just silly old shit.
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't really sort of go, no, I actually think it's a, you know, impressive sporting achievement. When someone would flick on the television and there's CATWEAZLE in a Victorian bathing suit going, yeah, oh, bum tickle. CATWEAZLE, this guy called Gary Cooper. He was from Hexthorpe, he was billed from. But I think he actually came from a slightly smaller town called Armthorpe, which was a mining village near Doncaster.
Right.
He was born there in 1939. And it is interesting to think that, you know, really, the escape from the mines at this point, you know, before we have a pop music industry or professional football, it really is just wrestling. And you can understand why, you know, you might think it's a degrading life to become a CATWEAZLE, a secondary CATWEAZLE. But I suppose the alternative was so much worse.
Yeah.
And Armthorpe the little village, is also where Kevin Keegan came from.
Oh, nice.
So
I like that.
Two big 1980s
CATWEAZLE and
sports
Kevin
stars.
Keegan. I mean, and Kevin Keegan is this kind of tragicomic character in parallel with being one of the best footballers ever lived.
There is a chance, due to their ages, that CATWEAZLE's mum and dad may have known Kevin Keegan's mum and dad.
Yeah.
Which is a sort of odd thing that you'd get together and on a Saturday and you'd go, let's watch our sons do what they do best. And there's Kevin Keegan hammering goals home, and then out comes Gary.
But Kevin would have known CATWEAZLE as being the other famous bloke from my village.
He must have done. I can imagine they were constantly, like British Wrestling, contacting the FA and saying, would it be possible for Kevin Keegan to accompany CATWEAZLE down to the ring? And they, absolutely not. No. Let's see a picture of him. No. He'd done national service. I don't think he saw action, because obviously he was born in 39, so he may have had Korea hanging over him, or one of those sort of strange Singapore Malaya incidents that none of us learnt about at school and now don't know about. But he began attending an Armthorpe wrestling club, which was that little village that he came from. Again, back in those days, tiny villages having their own wrestling clubs. Just astonishing. And by his early 30s, he'd moved to London. He'd been married and then he split up. And at some point while he was quite down, he met the wrestler Mick McMahon in a cafe. That to me is everything about the lack of glamour in British wrestling.
Just in a greasy spoon, having some egg and chips and
having his runny egg.
CATWEAZLE's having his runny egg, and Mick McMahon is eating some black pudding in the dark, as dark as his hair.
Hey, son. I don't know if you can help me, but I'm looking for someone to be a dirty CATWEAZLE.
You look long and dirty.
You look lank. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'll be your CATWEAZLE, McManus.
I'll do it, and I'll do it to the best of my abilities, actually.
Which is a low threshold.
Very, very low.
Low threshold. He didn't start off as CATWEAZLE. He started off as Gary Cooper.
Right.
But the fans, when he would come to the ring, began shouting CATWEAZLE at him. This is a magic thing where you are in your early 30s and people are shouting the name of a character in its 80s stroke 800s at you. It really is an odd one. But McManus really had a very, very soft spot for CATWEAZLE. He was the booker of Joint for a number of the years that CATWEAZLE was working. And when Mick McManus had his very final televised match, he handpicked CATWEAZLE to be his opponent. And they'd split falls between them, so McManus didn't win. It was at the time people couldn't understand it. But as soon as I hear about him picking him up in a cab, Mick McManus, I don't know what he saw in CATWEAZLE, but he saw something that delighted him. I just can't work out what it was. But while CATWEAZLE is sort of a famous figure in British wrestling, he's sort of also, behind the scenes, a bit of a man of mystery. There is no entry for him at all on Cage Match, which is the big compendium of all the wrestlers' results through history. He is mentioned on there, but he doesn't have his own dedicated bit that you can just click on and get full blast of CATWEAZLing. He's also got no Wikipedia entry, and he isn't mentioned in the article about famous people who come from Armthorpe, which is a low bar. There's only 3 of them. And not much is particularly known about him in the wider world. In 2013, his brother Steve, who is called Steve Greaves, posted some information about his brother on a site after people had been asking about the famous people of Doncaster. Some other people join in and they say, did he used to be a teacher, CATWEAZLE? And someone said, I went to Kingsmead High School. I had a science teacher that we all thought was CATWEAZLE. A lot of people said, yes, I think I was taught by him as well. It turned out that these were just other men who looked like CATWEAZLE.
Nice. Again.
Nothing to do with it.
Attracted to school somehow. Oh, dear.
Yeah, absolutely. That whole CATWEAZLE men have, to some degree, died out in Britain.
I couldn't locate a CATWEAZLE man now. Usually there'd be like a celebrity that resembles CATWEAZLE. I don't think there are any.
No, we old teachers certainly look like CATWEAZLE. Yeah. Old local nuisances look like CATWEAZLE.
No.
The CATWEAZLE men of Britain have died out. You know, I don't see Chris Packham crying about that. But in some ways, what's really charming about CATWEAZLE is what happens after his career. So in 1990, he became ill and he was diagnosed with cancer. He had 18 months.
I genuinely thought you were going to say cat AIDS then. I genuinely thought you were going. And good on you for not. Good on you for not.
He lasted 18 months before a vet helped euthanise him.
Little candle in reception. So you know that his owners are saying goodbye to a CATWEAZLE.
Came out with that plastic builder's sack that I saw on Google Street View, saying you can take him home now. And because he was such a popular figure in wrestling, there was a huge turnout of wrestlers who turned out for his cremation at Camberwell New Cemetery in London in 1992. And what was really interesting is that after his death, people became very aware that the time was passing. And if someone as beloved as CATWEAZLE could go, then maybe they should think about, not letting time just get away. Maybe what they should do is begin to meet up. And CATWEAZLE's cremation led directly to the inauguration of the long-running British Wrestlers Reunion. Yeah. So CATWEAZLE is credited with being the guy that finally made all the old wrestlers go, let's get together, share war stories, and celebrate the industry that we were in.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody very much. And Johnny St., you're a big hero of mine, so is Steve Gray and a lot of these guys here. For American wrestlers, you guys really set a standard that's above anything else that's been done since, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
CATWEAZLE would be CATWEAZLE for 2 decades longer than the TV series ran. He had his toad mascot that he would come in, just like the character had in the TV series. It was called Touchwood. It changed over the years, depending on whether he'd lost it. He never spent more than, I should say, 20 to 30p on that little bit of his gimmick. In one match I watched a bit later against Bobby Barnes, he has a soft plush toad. And the cameraman does a shot of it, and Kent Walton just goes, "There's the toad," which was beneath him.
Ken Walton, he could not be more pleased with CATWEAZLE, what CATWEAZLE does, what he doesn't do, what he gets up to in the ring. He loves CATWEAZLE.
He has a guilty love of CATWEAZLE.
I think it's pure love of CATWEAZLE. There's no, he just finds his japery very humorous.
We remember that Tom Thumb delighted Kent Walton as well. He does like a comedy wrestler. And the whole CATWEAZLE thing it looks revolting from the outside. But when it comes to comedy wrestling, you can see why he was such a big attraction for so many years.
Time to play the game!